Welcome, Mr. Rick Wittenbraker.
Hello, everybody. And first, I want to say thanks to Reza and to everybody here at Team Austin. They always throw great events, and I'm flattered to get to be included. And it's always I enjoy going to these type of events, so I appreciate all of you guys coming out to hear this. Those are some kind of crazy, ridiculous adjectives he used there, but anyways. So my name is Rick Wittenbraker. I've, in one way or another, been a marketer pretty much my whole career, but that's been all different types of companies and roles and jobs and offerings. And so I think, for me at least, one of the things that I've been able to sort of collectively pick up as I go through life is that there isn't a one-size-fits-all formula. There is no silver bullet. There is no, oh, okay, now we have the solution to the riddle. We can set it and forget it, and we're on to the next thing. It's always something that you have to be working on and revisiting, and hopefully the core elements are there, or you can invest the time to get the core elements there, but then after that, it is something that needs to be maintained. So I'm going to talk just a little bit about at least the way my head works and how I look at stuff. And the company I'm now a partner in is a local outdoor apparel company called Howler Brothers. And as he mentioned, our motto is heed the call. And for us, that means when something really calls to you, that you should go out and get it, go do it. So in our sort of slice of the pie, that usually means, if you have inspiration to go chase some, as y'all might have seen in the videos, chase some exotic fish or go to some exotic beach or do this, you should get off your butt, figure out a way to do it, and go make it happen. But that, it's our tagline, but it's also a lot of the way that we sit there and try to solve problems as a team. It's a lot of the way that we look at both marketing challenges and business challenges. So brand for growth, and let me just pause here. How many of you all are in your day-to-day job is with a technology or software company? That's pretty many. How many are with a services offering? And how many of you all are with like what we would call CPG or consumer product, packaged good? Like 2 people. Okay, so we as CPG folks have it a lot easier, right? Because as soon as someone can hold and touch our product, it's easier to convey that with packaging or product design or textures or whatever it may be. But when you're trying to sell software or accounting software to someone, it becomes really challenging, I would imagine. Thankfully, I've never had to do that, but it becomes very challenging to say, how do we get people excited about this? How do we inspire them? How do we convey all the great stuff that we have to offer in a way that gets our audience inspired? Not just to take advantage or adopt the product, but to then turn around and become evangelists for this and basically become our army, our foot soldiers out there. And one other thing is, branding, I think is misunderstood in a lot of circles. And look, we're all here to make successful ventures, let's call it. Whether that's a business or a nonprofit, we're all here to make them successful and drive forward. So in my case, we're here to make money too, the same way that Salesforce is there to make money off sales teams and anybody else. So we have to do that though, or we choose to do that in a way that is really crafted around a story and is crafted around some key components that we think are really, that matter. But hopefully you'll walk away from this saying, if we put in the time up front, even if we've already started down the path, if we can put in some time, then this will actually hopefully bear a lot of fruit for us. And it actually will make our lives a lot easier going forward. All right, so what is a brand? Especially, and I have to qualify this because I do, although I've only worked in the web-based world a short while, I have a lot of experience in dealing with that from a consulting basis and from an investment basis. But I see it over and over where especially technology companies think that branding is a logo or stationery or colors on a website. And those are like elements and micro components, but this is a big soup with lots of ingredients. And that is not branding or a brand. And so a brand is not just a logo. I like to think of a brand as a living person. And that person they look a certain way, they dress a certain way, they act a certain way, they talk a certain way, they interact with people. That's all what makes her different than him, different than you. And so that's all very unique, and no one else has that combination. So instead of just smacking a logo on it and shooting it out the door, it should all be considered about how we're doing things, aesthetically, but also from a tone, from an engagement, from messaging, all of these things. And I believe, too, that it'll really help you down the road. I also believe that a brand, despite all you hardcore sales drivers, I believe a brand sits above sales. Sales and marketing are supposed to feed each other pretty symbiotically, but a brand actually, in my head, sits above all of that. And you should invest the time to go figure that out, and it'll make both of their efforts a whole lot easier because they won't be trying to invent stuff. There is a set of guidelines in place that says, okay, am I meeting these requirements? Am I within the guardrails here? And you will have a whole lot less of that, the diaspora that tends to happen when you let a sales team loose with logos and colors, and over here, a marketing team loose with this idea that they live in this sort of euphoric little branding world. Neither of those should ever exist. It should be up here dictating, or at least a set of guidelines of how both act and how they interact. So how do we go create that in a way that's not just a shiny hood ornament, it's not just a logo, and it's not just something that somebody from TechCrunch can download on our press page, right? It's a thing. It's a way we should interact. It's a personality. So what is my brand? Not me, but what is that? How do we sit down at the whiteboard with a blank whiteboard, hopefully tomorrow, and you're walking through this, and what are your priorities as a company? And those have to echo true all the way down. And a brand should be at all times authentic. Authentic to who you are as a company and the product. The products can have their own brand. And especially when a company has multiple products, they need to have their own personality and brand. But it really comes down to what is important and what is the personality, what are we trying to do, what are we trying to convey here, who are we trying to talk to. All of that stuff is incredibly important. And how are we perceived by others? Because I can go write all this stuff down, I can go put it into play, but if I don't really put myself in this situation, I don't put myself in y'all's shoes, I don't understand how this is going to come across. And I might come across, it might be checking all the boxes over here, but I might come across as cocky, or I might come across as brash or rude or insensitive or whatever. And so you have to, and every personality, human and brand, has faults. So as long as you can identify those things and account for them and you have answers for them, that's okay. And you learn how to work past it and engineer around it. But I think one of the biggest things that everyone owes it to themselves to do is split the whiteboard in half and write, this is what we are, and this is what we are not. I think that's one of the best business exercises you can do, whether it's branding, I think sales, I think all of those things, because especially in an early stage environment, it's too easy to go chasing everything and you kind of end up like a blind dog in a meat market. When in reality, you need to focus on certain things, and maybe that's one thing, or maybe it's one market or one geography, but man, put those parameters up there so you can point to the board, and you can revisit this down the road, but at least you and your team can point to the board and say, that's out. We're not doing that. We're not going to Japan this year. That's out. We're staying here. We're doing this. This is what we're doing. So I think it is incredibly valuable, and I swear it's one of the best exercises you'll do, and after you hammer that out, you'll feel like a weight off your back, and it'll make everyone's vision a lot clearer. So this is Howler Brothers, my company. I did not start this company. Two of my partners started this 3.5 years before I joined. And so they already had, and I already knew them. We were friends, and was a customer, and we were pretty close actually, but they had already gone down this path, but they had not actually written it down and crystallized it. And these are two guys who are best friends, went to college together, are still in a band together. They have their own language. I'm the outsider coming in, and I know, intuitively kind of 80% of this, but I'm kind of like feeling my way through the dark. So we sat down as a team, 4 partners, and hammered this out and went through this same exercise of what are we and what are we not? What are our priorities? What does our brand stand for? And for us, the first one that's in our name is brotherhood. We are not about a singular experience. We're not about me or I. It's us and we. It's not a guy solo climbing some mountain. It's about what did we do together? What is that shared experience? That's us. But you can see here when you walk through the process and pick your 5 things or however many, those have to ring true, and they should ring true at all levels and all things what you do. These are the things you can put up on the wall. You don't necessarily have to broadcast this, right? This is more internal. This is how we operate. This is our priorities, what's important to us. And hopefully it comes through in our personality. So 2 really good reads here. One is this very seminal book called The Hero and the Outlaw. And they basically broke down brands as people and said that it's actually super relevant and equated to ancient Greek theater. And that there are 32, I believe it is, maybe it's 64, but there's X number of characters. There's the villain, there's the outlaw, there's the shaman, there's the peacekeeper, there's all these roles, and they all have positives and negatives, right? And they go through and define this, and you read it and you go, oh my gosh, I know someone that fits that role. But then you also can sit there and think of, and they give you a lot of great examples of a brand that fits that role. And one of the interesting things is like a brand, like just for example, like a Red Cross, super compassionate, super giving, others first, all of those great characteristics, but there are weaknesses to that, right? And one is that you actually become very needy. You're dependent upon others to exist and subside and to actually do your job. So it's a really fascinating read. It's not that intense of a book. But then the other thing that I think is the most fun, and I brought it, is the Archetypes of Branding. And it's basically a child of this one, but they took it and made it into a workbook and a toolkit, and there's even like action cards and all this stuff. And you go through, and it is a fascinating exercise to do with your team, because you'll find that even some people will have a different perception, right? I think that we are here, and she might think that we are here. And they're related. They might be siblings in the archetype structure, but it's not the same. And so it's super helpful, again, to walk through this as a team and you make that decision. Why are we or why are we not this archetype? And what do we want it to be? And I think that's another thing is there's one thing is what are we and what do we have been and how much money do we have in the bank? But one is what do we want it to be? What do we want to project and forecast as our archetype, as our personality, us? So those are great reads. And this one especially is super helpful and constructive when you're in a group setting. All right, so we figured out that this is important. We figured out that it probably should look something like this. It's a personality. You need to go through that exercise. So how do you go out and convey your story? Let's assume, too, you have your product, right, or your offering. So I'm a big believer that it really comes down to the why. And the why has gotten a lot of great publicity in the past couple of years, but when you sit there and ask yourself introspectively that question, and you can answer it, it should tell you where you should start from as a product or as a brand. And so to go back to the boring example of accounting software, we all know what QuickBooks looks like, and we all have our bad emotions about it. But you know, if there's a competitor to QuickBooks, whether it's Xero or somebody else, what is their stance, right? They shouldn't just come out and say, well, we do it 6% faster and we have more, cloud storage. Those are just little factoids. What is their stance, right? That we help you eliminate accounting from or drastically reduce accounting from your daily workflow. Or as an entrepreneur, we greatly reduce the amount of bandwidth and dollars you have to spend on accounting so you can get out there to actually go make money. Go do what you want to do and reinvest that into stuff that drives the company forward, not just keeps it alive. So I think the why is really important. And again, it's one of these things you should sit down and ask, why are we doing this? Is it because we can offer better cloud storage? Or is it because we're inspired by something greater? Some way to make their lives better or make it, more interesting or to make more compelled. I think another thing, especially in the digital world that gets tough as you're talking about marketing is where are we spraying our bullets or our bombs, right? Oh, we can do, demographics and audience matching and all this stuff on Facebook and Google and all that stuff, right? But that's just really just finding them. You got to go also figure out how to talk to them. And you got to figure out how to connect with them because it is not a lecture. And I think especially in the tech world, it's easy to have that. And you get so close to grabbing the prize and you drop all that other stuff we just talked about. And you're just trying to grease the sides of the funnel to get this guy to sign up on the web form or to free trial, no credit card necessary, or whatever it is, right? And I think they miss the whole boat. And so if you can really put that into play and figure out, well, how do we talk to these people? How do we engage with them? How do we have a conversation with them instead of just barking stuff at them, whether that's a promo or an ad or whatever it is, talk to them. Figure out how they think and interact. They're a person too, right? They're an individual, but they're also a company or even a team within a company. IT team within some company acts a certain way. That whole company acts a certain way. How do you engage them? How do you talk to them instead of just driving by and barking stuff out the window of your car? So I think that's incredibly important. Another thing is, it's one thing to sit there and rattle off all these facts, but if you're not giving them something aspirational in some way, shape, or form, it could be that, hey, you now can do your job in a third of the time. I would aspire for that. That's awesome, right? Or you can do it at a third of the cost, or whatever it is. but it's going to make your life better. It's not just more cloud storage or whatever some other thing is that's, a goofy technical bullet point. That's all important, and that matters at some decision-making level, but really, how do you turn them on? How do you inspire them? And so one thing, I'm just kind of reaching back to my past a little bit. When I was at YETI Coolers, we made big, fancy, heavy, hardcore coolers, right? And they're expensive, and they're hard to lug around. But in a world of $40 coolers, we convinced everyone that a $400 cooler was better, and that you have to have it. And I think a lot of that comes down to it does work a lot better. It performs better, and it holds ice longer and all that stuff. But those are just the technical bullet points. What it really does, if you really strip it away, a cooler is like temporary housing for beer for about 99% of the users, right? And so when you take that and you say, okay, when do people take coolers with them? When do they load them up and take them? And we didn't even have to pick what those passions were. These people were already doing it. So it could be, yours might be tailgating, and yours might be fishing, and hers could be camping. It didn't matter. Basically, we realized that we're putting your passion on steroids. And this is something that you're already spending too much time and money thinking about and working on, probably spend too much time on the internet looking at, and then we just come along and like put booster rockets on it and help you do that. So when you think about that though, that's not about telling everyone how long the ice lasts or how tough the cooler is. It's about telling them that your passion is going to be better. Your fun time is just got like jumbo sized. So I think that is super important, and that comes down to accounting software or cloud storage or whatever it is. It's not going to be the same. It's not coolers for cloud storage, but I mean, think about, find something in there that makes their life better, that convinces them this is the only way to go, even if it costs 10 times as much. There's a way. And then the last thing I really just want to say is every interaction matters, whether that's online, if that's an ad, if that's website, that landing page, whatever it is, instruction manual, all of those things matter. They need to be in sync. They need to be good. They need to be, it's an opportunity. It's a conversation, right? Otherwise, that person is asking you something and you just ignored them. So think about it, that's people answering the phone, that's outbound emails. Do not, software sales guys, have your outbound email through Marketo be in like 4 different font sizes and all that stuff. It looks terrible. Make an effort, man. Make it look good. Talk to me about me. Talk to me about how this is going to help me. So think about that. Sorry. Another good book here, it's actually super small and easy to read, is Marketing Lessons from the Grateful Dead. Sounds kind of goofy and hippie, but I'm telling you, man, if there is a brand that figured out cult following before anyone else, it is them. And there's 18-year-old dropouts. There's also 75-year-old guys who go to 40 shows a year and spend an inordinate amount of money doing it. And there's all these little subcultures within it. These guys it's 2 lifelong deadheads that wrote this, but they boil this down into the simplest of components, and you're going, oh my gosh, I can't believe I never thought of that. I can't believe I got my MBA and it was never broken down so simply as this. I could have just gone to a Dead show and figured it out. But anyways, I think that that is, and it's so short. It's like a plane flight to Dallas. You can read that thing. And it is so worth reading, and it should hopefully open, oh my gosh, I can't believe we've been whiffing on these 5 things for the past 2 years. So the next thing, okay, is how do we go light this fire? How do you go turn this on into, how do you go, we got all the elements, we know this is important, we got our product, we know branding and messaging and all of this communication matters. So how do we go do it? So there's one of my favorite sayings, and it's a gaucho saying from Argentina. El viaje es largo para hacerlo en mula. And what it means is it's a long journey to be riding a mule. So don't be riding a mule, because that sucks. You want a horse. So think about that. Oh my gosh, this is my job. This is where I spend half my life and what I care about and what puts food on my table. Let's do this the right way. Let's do something awesome. Let's make it not suck, you know? And how do we also make it not suck for everyone else we're talking to? So they don't fall asleep, or they don't hit spam or put us into junk mail like I do all those software sales guys whose fonts are not aligned. So I think another thing is you got to not only find your audience, but you have to find them where they need you. I'm going to pick on QuickBooks again, but QuickBooks does not need to be on Instagram, man. There's no value there. No one's on Instagram going, oh, I want some inspiration for my accounting software. That doesn't, right? For me, there is no value. Now, maybe if they're doing like a customer profile or something, I get that. They want to be relevant too. Those poor saps who are doing marketing at QuickBooks, they want to be relevant too. So look, but I think the important thing is you have to go to where your audience is and talk to them and interact with them in a way that matters, where they need you. So go where they need you. If they need you in the IT room, be in the IT room. If they need you in outside sales, go be in outside sales and talk that talk and do it and communicate in that way. And again, help them understand the why and how this is going to make their life better. I say this, my team is probably so sick of me saying this, but take friction out of the process. Do not make it hard. You know, it's that old sales thing of greasing the sides of the funnel. I mean, take it out, make it easy. Tee it up. Give the guy who's making a budget decision, right? Give him the tools that he needs to, not just so he understands, but that he can turn around and go sell it up the food chain, right? He can go get that senior approval, especially when it's 10x what they're using today. Give them the tools, tee them up, empower them, and put them in a position to win. I mean, it's simple, but really, you have to consider all this stuff again, all the way through from like, hey, we're having this cool, soft, touchy-feely powwow about what we stand for, all the way to when we leave the conversation, I convince Reza to go tell, his boss that he needs this, all the way to there. Hopefully it comes back, but you know what I'm saying? Everything has to be conveyed all the way through the pipeline. I always think of it as a big pipe with a bunch of valves on it, right? And the flow is dictated by the opening of the tightest valve. So if they're not all the way open, you're not getting 100%. They can all be open and that last one's at 20%, that's what you're getting. So think about that. It's got to convey all the way, it's got to ring true the whole way through, and it's got to be helpful, and you got to take the friction out of that pipeline and empower them to be winners. And one of the things that we do a lot of, and it's easier on a CPG side, but you can certainly do it on a tech side, right, is how do you enable your successes, your customers who are doing well with this, and your followers or your advocates, how do you turn them into champions, right? And not everyone is wired that way, and not everyone will be good that way. But find those ones that are going to be successful. A, you should already be having a dialogue with them, but B, ask them questions, get them engaged. How can we make this better? I'll give you a real good example. We use without giving any names, we use a third-party fulfillment company now that does all our shipping of orders, right? Warehousing and shipping. They are on a warehouse management software that is new, but they are big advocates for it. So we, as their customer, said, okay, we'll get on this, right? And one of the reasons why we agreed to that is that they have this direct dialogue with this product, this startup who's making this warehouse management software. And every time there's an issue or they have a need or like, why the hell does this feature not exist? They're on the horn, chat, Skype, whatever it is, right? And that stuff gets resolved. And so that relationship that software maker is giving to our provider turned them around as advocates to us, right? We're 2 degrees away from them. We don't pay them a nickel. They have now in turn created this advocate, so much so that they're now like tailoring their product offering to more what our guys want and need and less what they drew up on the chalkboard, a year ago. So really having a relationship with your customers and figuring out how to turn them into champions and advocates. And that can be little things. And it's not just retweet this, please, but it's like, how do you really turn them in? And maybe it's doing a customer testimonial. Maybe it's doing a customer video testimonial. Maybe it's putting them on the website. Maybe it's saying, hey man, you've been so helpful and I know you believe in us. I tell you what, every referral you send us, we'll give you all kickback, or we'll give you extra months on the subscription, or we'll do whatever. Upgrade you guys to platinum, whatever the hell it is. It almost doesn't matter. You just got to figure out a way that matters to them, that you have successfully impacted their way of doing things or their life, and now they can go become, they're armed at least this much to go become advocates. And the 2 last things I always say is, don't be afraid to ask for help. Nobody's perfect, and everybody has these questions, and there's usually someone who's been in a similar situation. So whether that's in a group like this, or a customer, or a mentor, or whatever, like ask for help. It works. And it'll at least, hey, at the very least, you can say, well, we don't want to do that, so we can scratch that off the list, right? Or we tried that and it didn't work, so now we're going to go try something else. There's a lot of knowledge and advice out there that you don't have, that we don't have. Go ask for it. And then commit. The thing that I hate the most about all this stuff is when people go do like a 3-hour brainstorm and they kind of hash it all out and they figure out, okay, we commit, we got our 5 things, we got our, look at, okay. And then they're off. And then it's just like, we don't care, get back to selling. You gotta, this should resonate all the way through the organization, every activity that the organization is doing, and hopefully all the way through to your audience. So commitment is a big thing. And I think that really gets into the authenticity of what y'all are doing and the personality of the brand. So with that, I'll just tell you to brand it for growth. That's the best advice I can give you, is not just to make it pretty, do it in a way that means success and that you're going to grow the business, grow the company, grow the brand. Thank you.
Everybody, let's give Rick another round of applause. That was amazing. No, you can stand up here. So this is the fun part. So this is the part where you guys get to ask Rick whatever's on your mind within reason. Let's try and be civil here, folks. We've got 2 people walking around with microphones. Rules are wait for the microphone to get to you to actually ask the question, because we are recording this. So who would like to ask the first question back there?
Hi. Do you have a marketing budget versus a sales budget that you, kind of a ratio that you go for?
A ratio?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
like, I think there's some, well, first of all, I think that the ratio, I know that's helpful because it's sort of formulaic. You can say, oh, we know it should be X dollars because it's, Y% of last year's sales or whatever. I think that's helpful. I think that, though, that is way more applicable, for me at least, for mature companies or companies that are at least like in a sort of, they're growing, but they're a little more stable, not in a early stage, hyper growth company. I just think they're moving too fast. Now, that being said, I'm a marketing guy, so I want all the budget, right? And I'm going to fight for all that budget. And I believe, though, it's our job as the marketing team to create a lot of stuff for the sales team and to direct it to the sales team and to empower the sales team. So we always work, or at least try to work, very hand in hand. But, you know, and I think it depends, too. What is your business? And God, it gets tough today. Like, is spending money on Google Ads that's going to convert in an e-commerce sale, is that really marketing? Or is that sales? So it gets a little tougher to you know, bifurcate there. But, I mean, as a rule of thumb, I think it just depends on your business. I mean, I would hate to say one thing. I mean, we have independent outside reps. That's a very different thing than having an inside sales force, you know, at a cube farm sitting there banging through the phones. So I don't know a good ratio to tell you, but I do know that if you have sales budget and no marketing budget, it's only as good as your people. And those people are only going to be valuable to you as long as they stay there. If you have a marketing budget and no sales budget, the sales folks, again, are going to may feel neglected, hopefully not, but you also run the risk of like spending all this money with no ROI. So I think there has to be a happy medium in there, and it just takes, what kind of business are you, what stage are you, what did last month look like, how much do we have in the bank? And then, you know, I think too, and we do this all the time, early stage companies, sometimes you just got to sit down and make a decision and say, okay, for the next 3 months, we're going to do X. And that's going to be, and we'll revisit this come October, but for now, we're going to do this. And let's push forward. We can analyze, we can see how we did, make adjustments. But I'm the guy that's always fighting for more and fighting for bigger photo shoots and cooler stuff and all that jazz. But I know too that it has to render. It has to produce. Otherwise, it's art, and that's not why I'm here. Yes, sir.
The top level of your brand position is brotherhood. What does that wind up looking like to the end user? What does it wind up looking like to the customer?
So for us, it means a lot of things. And it gets to, that's the kind of, I think, the word we chose to represent. That's how we interact with our team as collectively. It's how we interact with our partners and providers, and it's how we interact with our customers. And we want them all to walk away from this, any interaction, going, man, not only did that kind of check the box, but God, they were so nice. That was so cool. They were fun, interesting, helpful, just like you would want a brother to be, or you would hope that being a part of a brotherhood would be. So for us, that's the word. It's more the word we chose, but it really gets about relationships. And I think too, and I mentioned this previously, is that we're not singular. We are a team. We can't exist. We are a car that needs all these parts to operate, you know. And I think part of that is our internal team, our outside reps, our customers, our retailers, our providers, all of that stuff. And so for us, it's every interaction, every relationship needs to be great. They should walk away feeling good, but that also we recognize that we are not in this for a solo career. This is a team sport, and we're here as a team.
Hey, you mentioned early on about brands being kind of like people, and each brand has its strengths and its weaknesses.
Sure.
What are the biggest weaknesses that you see in brands time and time again? And also in kind of a more concrete example, looking at, you know, your brand with Howler Brothers, what do you feel is your biggest weakness with that brand?
We don't have any weaknesses. No.
Bullshit.
No, I'm just kidding. No, so if you, going by the book, you know, and the personality that we picked, there are weaknesses. And so I think just like any good productive, responsible person, if you can recognize or at least realize some of your weaknesses, you also learn how to deal with them better. So one thing I think for us that's a challenge is, and it comes to our personality in that book, is we like a lot of stuff. We like a lot of things, lots of activities. It's not fishing only or surfing only. It's actually, we define it as fish, surf, and adventure. Okay, so that's a lot of things. And it'd be a hell of a lot easier if we just picked one and did one and lived in this silo and didn't have to worry about ruling it out again. But those are the things that we deemed important to us and why this was started, and it gets back to the why, because inherently we do like all those things, so that is a part of us. We don't have blinders on. We want to do all this stuff when you go on a trip, or you're in the course of a day, you're thinking about all this stuff. And so we just got to sort of account for that. And we have to figure out, how do we not get totally spread out too thin? How do we be productive and stay the course on all three of those fronts? And then how do we stay true to ourselves in doing that, right? And not, it would be so easy if we just said, oh, we're just going to get on this, pick one and go down that path. You know, there's so many days when we could have 180 amazing photos to post on Instagram of one activity, but the last one looked like that, so we need to go to check this one off. So it's harder, you know, and that's just a little tactical daily thing. But I think it becomes one of our weaknesses is distraction and things. So we have to account for that, and we engineer that into what we're doing. Now, you can also use your weakness to your advantage, you know. So we do, for example, we do a fall collection and a spring collection, just like a lot of apparel brands, right? And that's what we offer to our retailers, and that's what we make our big promotional pushes, like some of these videos we just saw. But we have these other ideas too. So instead of just throwing them in the trash or trying to, you know, heavy hand them into one of those collections, we say, no, we have distractions, and they look like this. And one of them, we actually call them mutations. And it's like the funkier, weirder stuff that most retailers probably wouldn't buy anyways, but we still want to put it out, and we think it's actually an ingredient to the whole. And so we took that as, instead of us spending time like going down this crazy talk or, you know, coming up with these ideas that we're never going to do, no, let's put that into play, albeit at a smaller level, albeit much less frequently, but in a way that it still renders for us, there's ROI to it, and it helps us channel some of that stuff. But we can still be a fall, spring company or brand, right? What was the other question? I'm sorry.
Common weaknesses that you see across multiple different brands.
I wouldn't say that the weakness of a personality or archetype is the commonality. I think the commonality is not committing. I think that's a huge one. You see it all the time. I think another one, and that goes all the way up to Fortune 500, right? They don't commit to something. They're doing it because some ad company pitched them on it, they bought it, they're going to run it for 3 months. 3 months later, they're doing something totally different. I think the other thing is being authentic. You know, if it doesn't ring true and it's not authentic to what you're doing, people just see right through it. It may be a cool thing. It may have a big spike in YouTube views or whatever, but at the end of the day, it's fleeting. You know, it's like a bottle rocket. And it's cool, everybody goes, ooh, and then it's gone forever. Like I always think about when Old Spice did the Centaur Man, you know, those ads. And those are cool and hilarious and awesome. But and everybody wanted to watch them and share them online, but there's nothing about that ad that was Right Guard or Old Spice, whatever it was. See, I don't even know. But it's those ads, but there's nothing about it that was like core, authentic. It was them. in a way that you walked away going, oh my gosh, yes, there's no way that couldn't be them. There's no way it could be any other deodorant brand, you know? So I think authenticity, and it's something, you know, I'm going to have a group of friends. They're all marketing guys in the outdoors industry. And we get together, we talk about this stuff all the time, and we actually have an annual meeting and huddle up and discuss some of this stuff. And authenticity is the thing that comes back year after year after year. And partly because it is a constant struggle, but also because as companies grow and evolve, it becomes harder to retain that authenticity. And it's not to say that you can't evolve and change some of these things or revisit them, right? And you can totally do that. Maybe not every quarter, but you can. That's absolutely fair game. I think you just gotta, it's still gotta ring true. And if you're trying to be, you know, like Onnit Labs, great Austin company, right? Killing it. They are super authentic to who they are and what they're doing, which is about, you know, being very alpha in shape and, you know, working your tail off in the gym and being the best you can be in a physical environment. And they do a great job of being that and staying true to that. They're not trying to get into other stuff that doesn't really pertain to them. So I think authenticity is something that is a constant struggle, and there's a lot of bright, shiny objects out there. Stay the path. Authenticity and commitment. Those are the two things. Hi.
Hi, very interesting. I do have a question. With your international clientele that may have a different value system, does your strategy change at all?
I think some things can be, let's call it a version, right? You certainly want to make sure that that's not like some bad word in Norwegian or whatever, right? But I think that in reality, if you're true and if you're authentic and you're really building this for what it's supposed to be, the customers come to you. And I've said this before, like I don't want every store carrying our product. I want the right stores. I don't want every person wearing our stuff. I want the right people who get it, who really want it. So it's our job to go find the right stores and the right people. And I think that whether they live in another country or speak a different language or have a different, it's a really good question, but I think for us at least, we don't really alter it. You know, I mean, we'll help them work through some stuff if they need to translate, but we don't change who we are just because we're in a different country. And we as the brand, right? You know, we have and I think maybe this is maybe a little more real world execution of this is that there's a lot of importers or distributors and foreign retailers that I would love us to be in because I love them. I love what they're doing. I love the other brands they carry. It's a cool shop, or they do execute well on a lot of great stuff. And they may not get it as much. So we'll try and go across the midline and extend to them and explain to them because maybe we're not reaching them yet. But I think that's our problem. But then the flip side of that is we have a distributor in Sweden, and their store is no bigger than this stage, and they order a ridiculous amount of stuff. It doesn't even fit in their store. They have a storage unit because they just get it. And they came to us and said, we want to be not only carry it, but we want to be a distributor for all of Scandinavia. And they love it. And we can't make hats fast enough for them, you know? So I think it gets to that conversation and having a dialogue. And it may take longer to reach someone, and maybe they're not right. But I don't know. We don't have a real cultural a Rosetta Stone that helps us figure out what we should do for each one. I hope that answered. That wasn't really a great answer. But.
All right, guys, we have time for one last question. So this guy over here.
So one of the big takeaways I got from this is that your brand should directly influence your company culture. And in that case, that means that your brand would influence your hiring. So for a small company where, you know, one new person can hugely impact your company culture, I guess I just want to know, hear about your experiences for hiring in terms of like how branding affects your hiring, and how do you, find a good balance between hiring for diversity and also, you know, drinking your own Kool-Aid.
That's an awesome question, and I think that a lot like the example of our super enthusiastic Swedish distributor. Hopefully, if we're doing a good job and just in our day-to-day, let's say we're not hiring, there's all these people that bubble up to us and come to us and say, man, if there's ever a job open, please let me know. No matter what their skill set or what they would be good for. I think, though, one of the things that's interesting, I think it does matter. That's why these are the things we put on the wall. I think in our case, it pertains to our brand, but it also pertains to our company. And those are really important to us. And we have looked at people and been very close to pulling the trigger on people that check all the boxes on the job description, right? Have the experience, the skill set, knowledge, whatever. But that feeling wasn't there. And in our case, we are a family. We're not a big team. It really matters. These are roommates. This is family. I can't stress enough how much I believe that is culture is a part of this and should be. And you have to find the right people. And if someone's not the right, they need to go on that side of the whiteboard and say, here's what we're not going to do. You need to get rid of them. I know that's harsh, but if they're not a part of the solution and the way that we're doing it, now you can have third parties, right? But we have really gone through, at the cost of stretching this out and months until we find the exact right person, right? And I think, though, who we are as a company, personality as the brand, but also internally as a company and culture really matters as to who we should be hiring, right? And so we try to bake that as much as we can into our job descriptions and try to convey that even when you're reading it on the website or LinkedIn or wherever, right? That you get that, okay, these are things that are important to this company and that these are things that need to be important to the correct candidate here, right? And so I think, I don't know, we're still small, so we still figure it out with every hire, right? And we sit there and huddle up as a team, multiple meetings, and say, well, what do you think about this guy we talked to? And we've gotten so close so many times to someone and just said, you know what, it's not right. Let's wait. Let's wait for the right one instead of right now. That may not be everyone's, tactic on that, but that's how we operate, and that's how we choose to do it, because we always want to keep kind of the sphere as pure and productive as possible, if that makes sense, from a culture standpoint, right? The only one that's doesn't really want to be there or just kind of using us as a stepping stone. I'll give you a great example. We just for the first time, hired additional staff on product design that had lived 100% with our founder since inception. It was a big step for us, right? That now we're going to let someone else new person influence our product and what that ends up looking like and how that is perceived. And so it was a big leap of faith for us to bring someone new into that function. And we probably talked to 50 candidates. And they were wrong either because maybe they're out of our budget. That's one way they're wrong. But Another way could just be that, man, they have skills, but they don't fit. You know, it's not a fit, and it's gonna be a struggle. Or they're putting I first, not we. And when you can see that, hopefully you can derive that from meeting with them and hanging out. And it makes it real easy. I mean, there's so many occasions. Shoot, we've even like gotten right down to the point of hiring and said, you know what, this isn't right. And instead of, we told that person, you know what, no thanks. We'll actually go and like take the job description down and say, maybe we're doing this wrong. Maybe we gave the wrong message here, or we're looking for the wrong thing. Let's push pause, come back, or retool it and start over. So I think you know, it gets to the authenticity of who you are and who you want to be as a company. And so hiring and culture really matters. You know, these are people you're going to battle with. It's people you're sharing a room with. It matters. Hope that answers your question. Okay.
Hey, everybody, let's give Rick a great big round of applause. Thank you so much.